Sadie Dingfelder is back. She plays Is That Bullshit with us, and this is one of those issues. Oh, Sadie, we should say, is the author of Do I Know You? A Face-Blind Reporter's Journey into the Science of Sight, Memory, and Imagination. Am I getting that right, Sadie?
Yeah.
Is the reason I'm getting that right is I had it written down on the screen next to me that
Probably
you can't
helps.
say? Yeah, okay, yeah. And I guess the number one scientific question, the overweening scientific question that informs all others, it's really driving us forward as a species, is can dogs talk with buttons? Am I getting that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what the whole NIH is now focused on.
I think you may be right, and I'm happy with that. You know, they let us dissuade them from their vaccine chicanery and get into the dog button thing. So what exactly is the claim with the dog buttons? The people who have the buttons, the dogs with the buttons, what are they saying the buttons can do?
So have you seen these videos?
I think so, yes.
Okay. Do you want to watch one?
Okay, let's watch one.
Okay. Here, just pick whichever one you want to watch.
Wow, a cavalcade of dog button videos. All right, right now, we recently added the names of three of...
Bunny went to play tango.
Bunny play tango. This is a smart-looking dog. This is a wise dog, this bunny.
Bunny want to play tango today?
Does Bunny want to play tango today? Bunny looks, I would say, nonplussed in the traditional definition, which is to say confused. Bunny's an interesting breed. She looks a little schnauzy, but a little poodly.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so that was Bunny walked around and then stepped on what looks like a giant map of a unmapped continent, and there's a lot of buttons there. I'm not sure. I like Bunny.
Yeah.
I'm partial to Bunny, but what the hell did I just see? What does that show?
Well, Bunny told his human companion that he would like to go play with his friend named Tango.
And who's
today.
Tango? And who's Tango?
Tango's another specific dog.
Oh, okay. And
Yeah.
he did that with the buttons?
Well, he has a button that says Tango.
Wait, he looks like he just stepped on a lot of buttons.
Yeah.
But one of them said Tango?
Yeah.
Oh. Was this before I started watching the video?
Oh, I don't know. Okay, maybe.
I just saw a dog there. It was like Bunny want to go tango. This is the second one.
Yesterday, Bunny went to play tango.
Yeah.
Okay, so she said that's her dog.
Here, let's watch it both together.
Bunny want to play tango.
Okay, so Bunny's looking
she's gonna
confu-
go hit now or
Yeah.
yes or yes.
Well, let's see what Bunny does.
Okay.
Bunny's looking really confused at Mama Bunny. All right, she does a loop. She goes behind the couch or the table, and then she steps on a bunch of buttons. All right.
Yes.
Yes, go play.
Okay.
Oh, so she only stepped on I get it.
Yesterday, Bunny went.
But in other videos, she does say like play tango. Like she like requests. She has a few dog friends.
And that walking around and stepping on buttons, we're meant to interpret that as intentionally communicating something specific.
Yeah, yeah,
Not randomly stepping on certain buttons, but not others.
right.
Interesting. All right. So Bunny plays tango.
Right, and there's videos where a lot of dogs have these things,
Yeah.
and so the dogs like seem to ask existential questions like why dog,
Yeah. Why dog?
and so there's all of these videos, and honestly,
Why not wolf? Why not fox?
why not?
Why dog?
What dog? I think I've seen that one before.
Or wet dog. Okay. So there's these. Now, are these buttons commercially available, or do
Yes.
the owners rig them up?
They are commercially available, and they come with some preset like labels you can put on them, like
Yeah.
walk or outside. But you can also put your own labels on them.
Right. It's
like-
like to answer the existential questions. You know, it is like ontologically or deontologically, just whatever consequentially. Yeah, you can have your own philosophy to explain this to the dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not so random. I mean, I guess like the people, you have to train your dog to use them.
Okay.
You have to show it the object to associate it with the button, for instance.
Oh, okay. Right. So the dog doesn't read, but
Right.
it knows a certain symbol means, let's say, tango.
Or it could have just memorized the place on the pad. I think some of them are different colors too.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So maybe that counts. That's interesting. And how many buttons are there on these things, on these setups?
I think the starter pack is 3, but you can start adding and adding. And Bunny has like maybe 100 words, I think, in
100
his or her
words.
vocabulary. Yeah.
One is tango. Now, what is the starter pack? What about door, dog bowl, and owner face? Because that, without actually buying these, this is what most dogs start with.
Yeah.
Like if it whines at the door, it wants to go out. If it whines at the bowl, it wants food, which is always. And if it licks the owner's face, it wants to play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That those are the main ones. They are outside or play, food,
Yeah.
and what was the other one? Yeah. Outside.
Why do I
food,
exist?
And why do I exist?
And can you solve the situation with the Uyghurs?
But so interestingly, so they did. Okay, so we all know the Clever Hans, but
Yes,
maybe we'll
the horse.
Yes.
Yes.
So Clever Hans, was this horse that appeared to be able to do pretty complicated math problems, but they figured out that horses and dogs, are very, very good at reading human body language.
Right.
And so the horse was just cued on into its owner, and so when he would stomp the number answer, and when he was getting close to the end, the owner would get more and more excited. And then the horse was just very good at predicting when it was done.
Yeah.
And so that's the first effect that the scientists need to rule out.
That it's not just the human cueing the dog.
Right.
Right.
So they did an experiment. They meaning, who is it?
Dr. Bunny.
It's funny because these researchers are not like specifically dog cognition people, and
or trained or board certified.
No, it's funny you say that. They're totally very real. Federico Rossano.
Okay, sure.
And he is at, where is he at?
University.
USCD.
University of Ralston Purina. Okay.
Yeah, he's super legit, but he gets so much guff, I don't know a better word, from all the other scientists, because the whole area of
rough, no, yeah.
of human animal speech is a very weird and long. It's kind of become taboo to even study it because there's such a history of weirdness, including like women who lived with a dolphin and
I know about that.
Yes.
Certain favors were exchanged.
Yeah. So anyway, but they did this great experiment where they had the scientists come into people's houses. Mm-hmm. And the owner was put in like a different room.
Okay.
And the
bad owner, bad. So the owner got a timeout.
And then the scientist would press a button, but so they didn't want the scientist to know the button press either, right?
Okay, right.
So they had like noise canceling headphones on the scientist, and they covered the words on the buttons.
So then, okay, explain what the experiment was, though.
Okay, the experiment was the scientist would press one of the 3 buttons that were in this experiment.
Okay.
And you know what it was? The 3rd button was the control. It was a nonsense word.
Okay.
Yeah. So they would press a button and one of them would say play or outside, and they would see if the dog responded appropriately. So the question is just, do the dogs understand what the buttons are saying without the owners in the room?
I thought, okay, now I'm confused because I thought the buttons were for the dogs to communicate, but it's two-way communication? Owners hit a play button and then the dog knows to play because the button says play?
I think generally the owners just say play.
Yeah, right.
But like if you think if you're going to prove that the dogs are using these buttons, they should be able to understand the buttons.
Yeah, that's true. That makes sense.
So, and also when you're teaching the dog what the play is, you do hit play and then you say play and you play with the dog.
Yeah.
So they had the dogs. The researchers pressed the button, and the dogs responded appropriately. They didn't do anything for the nonsense word, and for play, they would run to the door, pick up a toy, and then actually, it didn't work very well for food. They just probably looked for they wanted to see if the dogs would run to their food bowl, but instead they just looked like kind of expectantly at the researchers.
Okay. So this is fine. I guess you have to establish the baseline of research, build on foundations. I have some critiques of it already, but so maybe some of these buttons can communicate to a dog that we want to play. Although I wouldn't see why that wouldn't be the case. When an owner says, play, you want to play? Then the dog gets excited to play. What is it different from if there's a button going, making a sound that the dog associates with play.
Yes.
You know, why is that different from holding up a squeak toy to a dog and going squeaky, 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 and then the dog gets excited because they want to play with the squeak toy? It's just a noise they associate with playing, and that noise could be a button. I'm down with that. I think that's perfectly acceptable, but I don't think it moves us forward in terms of dog-human communication. But please, I'd like you to move us forward.
Well, so they're going very slowly.
Yes.
And their next question was, are the dogs pressing buttons at random?
Yeah.
Or are they grouping them together in ways that that are non-random?
Okay.
And
like a sentence structure? Like this, then that, then the other?
It's really just 2 or 3 word groups.
Okay.
And it's whether or not, I think that you could actually reverse them and they would count the same.
All right.
So play outside is the same as outside play.
Yeah, well, Latinate languages put the verb first. So, yeah.
And they, and then, for every single one of these dogs has its own board configuration.
Right.
So they had to model what a random set would look like given the dog's board configuration using network theory.
Okay.
Isn't that amazing?
Well, it is. It
was
seem like
152 dogs. So they did it for each one of these dogs.
Wow.
Yeah. And
who's funding this?
Well, the way they collected this data was So this is another weakness in the study, right? It was owners reporting every single time their dog pressed a button, they were supposed to report it on a little custom app.
Oh, you can't automatically record that? You can't have it wired in? You can. It costs another $400,000.
Yeah, but everyone has their own button set up. Who knows?
Okay, so when they started doing it with multi-buttons, what did they find?
So they found the question was, are they doing it at random?
Yeah.
And the answer was no, they are not at random. They were grouping things together in I don't want to say meaningful, but in predictable, non-random ways.
Okay.
And then the question...
what things would be put together?
Go outside was big. Oh, another interesting thing is they wanted to ask whether the dogs were just copying the owners. So but it turns out the owners are constantly pressing later, like food later, play later, and the dogs are constantly pressing now. Food now, play now.
Yeah, that's classic dog, classic bunny.
That just feels a little bit like understanding.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was the second thing they did. And what was the other thing they tried to rule out? Yeah, non-random, they're not copying their owners, and they're responding appropriately. But that is all we know so far.
Okay, wait, so that is the current state of research?
That is the current state of research.
Would they have published any, what do they call them, like null sets or findings where they tested something and it didn't work?
Ooh, good question. They should. They
should if they were nice. So as far as we know, they never tried a theory and then ruled out that the dogs were actually thinking at a higher level?
I mean, they haven't gotten there yet, but I think they would if they got it. And everyone's pre-registering their studies these days, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are the claims of the dog owners? So far, the scientists say that that play means something, although bowl means look at me expectantly.
Yeah.
And that there are some groupings that seem to make sense in a way, right? Play, and the dog will answer, play now. And the dog wants to do everything now. The dog loves the now button.
Right.
All right. That's, I guess, cool. It doesn't, I do have to say, it doesn't advance us more than non-button communication. Like, you want to play? And the dog gets excited. Or the dog's like, want to play, want to play, want to play. And the owner's like, later, later, later. But anyway, so there's a button in between. I don't know how that helps us that much.
Right. I mean, in the case of Bunny, maybe you would know Bunny could only communicate through body language that he wants to play. But with the buttons, he can specify which neighbor dog he wants to play with.
I'm sorry, I can't rule it out, but there's no way they have preferences for neighbor dogs. They don't care.
You don't think they care?
I think when they see the dog, I don't think they can think ahead.
Right.
I don't know, can dogs think ahead? Can dogs plan?
That is the next question is, can dogs think about objects that are not within their immediate vicinity?
Okay, great question. And the answer is?
We don't know.
Oh, so how are we doing the buttons? We're saying that we have a button system, which I don't believe, that says, I want to play with Tango.
Yeah.
And we haven't even established that a dog has any concept of what Tango is if it's not seeing, or probably more appropriately, smelling Tango.
Yeah. We don't know.
Oh.
But they did find that the dogs were very often initiating button interactions.
Uh-huh.
So the dogs are finding the buttons to be useful to communicate with their humans.
Okay.
Now you would think any tuned in dog owner can understand what its dog's trying to say, I think. like just through body language.
Yeah.
But
Or also that the stakes of getting it wrong are pretty low. Oh my God. He played with Muffy, not Tango. How will he ever forgive me?
But there's definitely some kind of fun, very circumstantial evidence that dogs sometimes coin their own phrases to describe things.
Like kids, like teenagers.
Yeah, yes.
That's where we got on fleek. It's from a schnauzer.
That is such an old one. Can you think of a newer one?
A new phrase?
Yeah, a new phrase.
I used sus just before with you. That's not that new.
Yeah.
Right?
That's solid.
My kids are always using phrases and then defining it with me. I'm like, I got it from context, you know? That's a little wook woo. I'm like, I got it.
Well, I've never heard that one.
No, I just made it up.
Oh, okay.
But that's the sort of thing they say. I don't know. That guy's a little whoo. I'm like, I get it.
They would say Delulu, is my understanding.
That's a big one. Yes.
But there was a dog that saw an ambulance and then pressed squeak car.
Okay.
And so that was pretty fun. And then there was another dog, or maybe it was Bunny, who said like small couch outside. And Bunny wanted to go outside to sit on its little chair thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't believe any of this.
Yeah.
I think this is all going to come crumbling down. It was all a giant scam. I do. I honestly
You
think.
do? You really do?
If anyone cares to put enough effort in, I mean, look, I guess you would say that in a limited way, I'm very skeptical here. In a limited way, the dog is communicating something, but as I've established, it doesn't seem that they're communicating things that they couldn't communicate in the ways dogs and their owners, human companions, have communicated for millennia.
Right.
You want to convince me that there's like 3 more buttons that might mean something? Yeah, but is she putting, or who's the dog's owner? He or she?
She.
Yeah, is she putting all the nonsense interactions online? I mean, you could just edit the ones that seem to work.
Right.
Also, do we have their map in our home? Like, we don't even know what the buttons say, right?
No, you can hear them. I mean, I guess you could edit it.
I guess, yeah.
But even so, like if people are editing it, I'm disappointed in them because the buttons feel very random to me. There's very long pauses between the buttons.
Yeah.
So I just can't imagine dogs thinking that slowly. I mean,
And has anyone done an experiment on this to disprove large claims therein?
oh no. But they're inching up to it, and they're probably not going to find that the dogs are using language like humans, but maybe they'll find something cool. Like dogs really can think ahead a little bit. Maybe they can plan ahead a little bit.
Yeah.
Or something like that. I mean, there's a lot to learn here, I think. But that said, you're on the side, it looks like, of Alexandra Horowitz. Have you ever talked to her?
No.
Oh, you would love her. She's a dog expert.
Oh, wait, I know her. Does she live on the Upper West Side? Yeah, I know. I did a live event with her. She's great. Yeah, I like her a lot.
Yeah,
she
awesome.
has 2 dogs. I think one of them recently died, but she wrote a book about her
puppy.
2 dogs. Yes, I know her. She's
You're
great.
the puppy.
Yeah.
She's great. And she is anti-dog button words because she says, oh my God, like we are already asking so much of our dogs. We're putting them in like stupid outfits. They're actually already exceptionally...
Sombrero, no. Sombrero, no. Sorry, it's time for the sombrero. Sombrero, no. Sombrero hates sombrero.
Yeah. And so...
Why sombrero?
And honestly, I kind of feel like that's the magic of having an animal in your house is that you do get to try to meet them where they are.
Yes.
And like, why are we trying to make them use language?
Also, why do we want dogs to be, smarter or more communicative? Don't dogs give us so much joy, and some of it is the mystery of what's going on in their world? And do we really think, how crazy are we as a species if we think we're going to improve this interaction or what we get from dogs by giving them more consciousness, by giving them more of an ability to communicate with us? It is exactly flying too close to the sun and being careful what you wish for. We don't want that from dogs. We want them to be innocent and 3 buttons max.
Yeah. I also think Bunny is like only a small number of dogs can actually be trained to use these buttons.
Oh.
And so they're like kind of the exception, and they tend to be really anxious. So maybe it's like related that if you're smart, you're going to be like unhappy, and if we're trying to bootstrap them into even more intelligence, they're going to get more unhappy.
Yeah, I think as we probably address their very basic animalistic needs. What will fill the gap once all of those requirements are met? Probably psychoses, or at least, the need for a psychiatrist. This is really terrible. It's really dark. I think that there probably is some good application for this with the higher primates, your gorillas, Coco, people who could sign.
Yeah.
People, I say people. I mean chimps
They've
and
definitely done
gorillas.
button words with other animals, I think. But I don't know the whole literature about chimps and things like that. I have no idea if they're coming up with novel combinations or anything.
Okay. So are there any other major big studies, or
No.
are there other studies that people are that the button enthusiasts see as the next big breakthrough? Like, we need to get this study to show that Bunny and those of her ilk can actually communicate?
Well, so there's no one else doing this research as far as I can tell, but these guys have really set up this massive program where if you want to be involved, you can. It's this like huge, it's probably the biggest citizen science program.
Oh my God.
And everyone,
Oh my God.
you get your custom app and you report every time your dog presses buttons, and it gets, and so they're trying. So people are probably participating in an experiment right now that's pushing advancing the frontier of dog button knowledge.
Now, I'll just ask you, as an expert, as someone who loves animals and maybe wants it to be true, would you say you want it to be true?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I think it's really fun to think about what it's like to be a dog, because their primary sense is smell. So I imagine, since we're sight, if you do one as an analog, the dogs, you can imagine them having almost a long exposure photograph. And so they can see things that were here yesterday. And everything's sort of slowly fading.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's more fun to think about how we're different than trying to force them into being
That's
the
a
same.
great point. It's like the dog version of nostalgia. It was there. It was a squirrel once. Tango, bunny, nostalgia. The whiff, the smell of Madeleines from my youth as a puppy. All right, let us make a ruling. Can dogs, or dogs can, communicate through buttons? Is that bullshit?
They are communicating through buttons. That's true. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dogs can communicate complex thoughts through buttons more than the regular whining at the door to go out. Is that bullshit?
We don't know yet.
Okay, very good. Sadie Dingfelder is the author of Do I Know You? A Face-Blind Reporter's Journey into the Science of Sight, Memory, and Imagination. And she has a dog named...
Nothing.
Nothing. It's a weird name for a dog. What does your dog say via buttons?
Let's go.
But you have cats.
I have 2 cats.
Do you think they could communicate?
They communicate very well with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what they want.
Yeah, because they always just want food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to eat your face when you're dead, as we've established.
No, but they barely ever do that.
Sadie, thank you so much.
Thanks.